When's the last time you felt a chill? Not the kind when you walk outside on a winter afternoon or when your leg touches a metal chair in a cold room, but that feeling when you learn the truth. When you realize that your reality only extends as far as your perception, that your understanding of everything around you can fall victim to manipulation, that even your simplest assumptions can be wrong. Well, I often get that feeling from horror movies. Of course, many of the genre's most defining visuals include blood and chains and screams, but sometimes it's the subtle shots, the ones without such overtly disturbing imagery, that truly stick with you. And oftentimes not from the images themselves, but what they imply. And to achieve this effect, this eerie feeling, the film needs to cleverly select and manipulate the information it reveals to the audience, acknowledging how such information will influence the viewer's conclusions about other parts of the world the film has presented. So, the film may show one thing, expecting the viewer to come up with certain explanations for it, but then show something else that contradicts those explanations, recontextualizing everything that came before. You see, the information is simply what the film presents to you, whether it be an image or a sound. But the explanation is a conclusion from the viewer about something beyond the information itself. The film may present a character massaging his neck, information, and the viewer may then conclude that it comes from lingering pain. While the information may raise a question, perhaps a why or a how, the explanation aims to give an answer. And though this answer arises directly from the information the film presents, it isn't as concrete. In fact, the explanation is defined by its subjectivity, by the unique perspective of the viewer, and by its flexibility, that it can change as the film introduces additional information. That is to say, the information itself is never wrong, but the explanations for it can be. Plot twists come from a discrepancy between the actual explanation for the film's information and what the viewer believes to be the explanation. But we can only ever know our own explanation. The true explanation for a film is unknowable, the viewer always shaping their interpretation of the film's information in hopes of matching it. When a film understands this, it can induce one of the creepiest feelings: retroactive realizations, the presentation of information that changes the explanation for previous scenes, basically changing what the viewer thinks about something that's already happened. Some of the most powerful plot twists arise from this sort of manipulation. The 2004 Thailand horror movie Shudder takes advantage of the typical traits of ghosts in film, their invisibility, to manufacture one of the most memorable reveals the genre has to offer, building up to it by presenting images that seem to defy it, that should outright dismiss it. But once the film unveils the truth, we realize that the very characteristics that define ghosts not only allow them to hide from the characters, but from the camera as well. The film understands the conclusions the audience will come to when presented with certain shots or dialogue, and it builds its narrative around subverting those explanations. That is to say, it misleads the audience, but in a way that never contradicts the information it presents, only the conclusions the audience draws about the information. But hopefully I didn't give the twist away. Luckily, Shudder isn't the only film to utilize this technique. Lake Mungo has become a bit of a cult classic by now, pushing the found footage style into new territory, blurring the line between fiction and reality even further by taking cinematic strategies typically only found in true fact-based documentaries and repurposing them for its own narrative. With its familiar blend of medium close-ups, off-screen interviewers, voiceovers, recreated or dramatized footage, and shots lingering after or completely without dialogue, Lake Mungo effectively steals the feelings that only typical documentaries tend to evoke, and applies them to itself, making the film seem even more real than the standard one-shot found footage horror movie. The film didn't even have a concrete shooting script. They simply had a basic outline and improvised from there, so the mistakes in their delivery or with the camera's tracking of the subjects wouldn't just feel like an attempt at authenticity, but an example of it. Of course, the film never fully escapes its artificiality. We always know it's not real, but these techniques allow us to accept this illusion and treat the events in the film as though they really happened, which in turn breaks down the division between fiction and reality, opening the viewer to feelings brought about by supernatural images that typically only occur during discoveries about real life. The film's style doesn't only steal for its story, but for its scares too, giving them that extra bit of realism, making that suspension of disbelief even more powerful. It gives you the same feeling seeing a ghost that you would from a case-defining piece of evidence in a crime documentary, only so much scarier. For a brief moment, it feels like the disturbing image you just saw, the truth that the characters, the people, finally learned wasn't simply created in someone's mind, but actually happened. And if you want to find these truths before the film simply reveals them, you need to actively scour the screen for details, which only makes you feel confident when you find them, just for the film to go back and reveal the details you missed, to illustrate that what you had previously seen points to one conclusion, but this new information points to another, exposing the flimsiness of your reality, how easily you can change your beliefs. The film may first draw attention to a dark figure walking down the hall, then draw attention to a shape in a reflection, and later draw attention to another figure in the dark, each time further showcasing the power of information, of its influence on your beliefs. And these moments don't need gore or guts or screams to send chills. The specters we see don't do anything frightening or seem the slightest bit malicious, they simply stand there. Yet the simple reveal of their presence induces fear, sometimes even doing so with a normal, living person. The effect of the information, the realization that something or someone has slipped by your gaze, your knowledge, and appeared somewhere you once considered safe, unsettles me more than almost anything. Not drawing attention to itself, it simply exists somewhere on screen, hiding in plain sight, taking your perception of safety, of being alone, and perverting it. Perhaps more frightening though, it exposes the one thing that seemed untouchable. The past, making you realize that all the time you thought you were safe was nothing more than a lie. These retroactive realizations show that at any point, with the right information, even the past can crumble. Thanks for watching.